Livy's first book of his Roman history covered the reigns of the city's 7 legendary kings, starting with Romulus, the founder of the city itself. When he came to narrate the end of the first king's reign, Livy tells us that Romulus disappeared into the heavens during a violent storm. The story continues with the Senate confirming to the bereaved people of Rome that Romulus was now in the heavens. In the aftermath, and to lessen the ill feeling towards the senators, one man, named Julius Proculus, told the people of Rome that he had been visited in his dreams by the now divine Romulus, who had told him to pass on word to the Romans that they were to cultivate their skills at arms, so that Rome could become the leader of the world. Crisis averted, so Livy tells us, by Julius Proculus's actions. It is a peculiar story, and it's worth questioning why Livy chose to include it and to prefer it to other, quite different versions of the story. In the middle of his account, Livy comments on an alternative version in which the senators of Rome tore Romulus apart because of his increasing tyranny. In the next breath, Livy dismisses this story as one filtered down and just barely to his own day. In other words, a story with little value. Yet a contemporary Greek historian, Dionysius of Halicarnassus, much prefers the violent version and notes extra details, including the fact that the senators smuggled Romulus's body in pieces out of the Senate house. So why does Livy prefer his version? Part of the answer is found in Livy's statements about the purpose of his history. In the opening paragraphs of the work, Livy makes 2 important statements. First, he states that the earliest history of Rome is better suited to poetry than history, and that he was not concerned with establishing whether or not the facts were true. He instead wants his readers to attend, and I quote, to the life and morals of the community, the men and the qualities by which through domestic policy and foreign war dominion was won and extended. For Livy, accuracy is less important than communicating the qualities that enabled Rome to become a Mediterranean empire. Julius Proculus's quick thinking fits this model. With his words, the Romans move on from Romulus's death to take command of their destiny. Proculus is an example, an exemplum, of Rome's qualities and morality. Second, Livy says that he is starting with Rome's earliest history in order to close his eyes to the evils of his own day. It is no coincidence that Livy preferred this version of Romulus's death to the one in which the senators tore Romulus apart. Never forget that Livy wrote in the turbulent years after Julius Caesar was stabbed to death by members of the Senate, and he looked as much a king as Romulus. After Caesar's death, there were 13 years of civil war, and evidently Rome lacked the statesman-like subtlety that Julius Proculus provided. Would Livy have been able to look away from his own day if he had depicted Romulus's death as an echo of Caesar's assassination? The story of Romulus's death becomes part of the ways in which later Roman and Greek writers commented on the final civil wars in Rome. Which version a writer preferred tells us more about the lessons they wanted the people of their own day to learn than about the events they describe. Unfortunately, all this means that Livy's story does not help us much if we want to understand Rome's earliest days as they really happened. The constant reinvention of the past to explain the present is something we should all be familiar with, as we live in an era of updated literary classics for a modern audience, or contemporary debates about what it means to be British, European, even global. However, if we want to understand Rome's actual origins, we must look elsewhere, to Rome's earliest physical remains.